Capcom has been really good at preserving their older games. They seem to really knock it out of the park with their collections and re-releases and whatnot, but I think it goes double for their fighting games. I, and I'm sure many others, were clamoring for Capcom to bring back their fighting games other than Street Fighter for years. And they started with Capcom Fighting Collection back in 2022, continued with the Marvel vs. Capcom Collection just last year, and now that has brought us to Capcom Fighting Collection 2. A collection of games I really started to give up hope that we'd ever see get re-released, and it is worth it. Let's talk about it. Hi guys, DPX here reviewing today the Capcom Fighting Collection 2. Now before we get started, you know what to do. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell and leave a comment, or I will lock you up. Starting off with the good, Capcom Fighting Collection 2 honestly kind of smokes the lineup in the first Capcom Fighting Collection. There is one game in particular that is a bit questionable, as well as some odd omissions, but other than that, a very solid lineup. First, probably the two biggest selling points of this collection are Capcom vs. SNK and Capcom vs. SNK 2. Despite what the name may imply, it's not really Capcom vs. SNK, it's more just Street Fighter and Morrigan from Darkstalkers versus King of Fighters. Maybe some other SNK characters that aren't from King of Fighters. But it's fucking sick. The music in these games, especially the sequel, all go really hard and give similar vibes to that of MVC2 in my opinion, and the sprite visuals I think have aged pretty well. Both games are really solid, but the second one is definitely better because it's got a bigger roster and plays better, but still, it is so cool that we actually got a re-release of Capcom vs. SNK. Throw that in with how we also got a re-release last year of SVC Chaos and the other weird card games, or whatever the fuck those are, as well as Fatal Fury and Street Fighter characters appearing in each other's games, and you know, it's only a matter of time till we get that long-awaited Capcom vs. SNK 3. Like I said, the CVS games are probably what you come here for, but don't sleep on the other games, as we also got Capcom Fighting Evolution. We also did manage to get one Street Fighter game, Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper. Gotta love how these Capcom Fighting Collections, while including a little bit of Street Fighter, mostly refrain from making it all about Street Fighter, as this is the only one included in this collection, and what a damn good game to do that with. Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper is pretty much the definitive version of Street Fighter 3, with a giant roster and crazy new mechanics. But then to get to more obscure games, we finally got a re-release of the Power Stone games. I've always had a soft spot for Power Stone, as it's a truly unique fighting game. It's almost like a 3D version of Smash Bros, and it's a lot of fun. The first game is more reliant on just hand-to-hand combat and power-ups, while the second game is more of a party fighting game with its crazy items and shit. I think the question of which game is better is honestly, like, you know, the answer is interchangeable. I do think Power Stone 2 has better presentation, but the first game might be more what you are looking for in a fighting game. But still, I'm beyond happy we got a re-release of the Power Stone games. Now, if we can just get a Power Stone 3, that'd be epic. Then we got Project Justice, another forgotten Capcom fighting game that seeing a re-release for is beyond exciting. It's the sequel to Rival Schools. Where's that game? Well, I'll get more into that later, but regardless, Project Justice is an improvement over Rival Schools, with a better roster and better mechanics. Then lastly, we got Plasma Sword, the sequel to Star Gladiator, for which, you know, a little history lesson, that was Capcom's rejected pitch for a Star Wars fighting game. Now, where's Star Gladiator? Well, I'll get to that later, but just like Project Justice, Plasma Sword is an improvement, although that take is a little more divisive from what I know, but I still think Plasma Sword is great, and you can definitely see the Star Wars inspiration all throughout this game. Every game I listed is really good here. Sure, they are mostly good games, but that's not really what I meant. I mean, they are good re-releases. This is a great way to replay these games. Not to mention, one thing I really like is how the secret unlockable characters, or even like some of the non-playable bosses, are actually playable from the jump now. For example, in CVS, Evil Ryu, Shin Akuma, Orochi Iori, and Ultimate Rugal are all playable from the jump. It makes these versions of these games feel like the definitive versions of each game. But one thing I really love about these collections is how they include online. Inherently, adding online play to an arcade game from the late 90s or early 2000s is an epic feature, and it works really well in CFC2. I like how you can queue up multiple games and wait to see who's available, and the online itself runs really well. Don't worry about my gameplay and how I'm doing. I also love the museum. Little things like this in a collection go a long way for me. Looking through artwork in the gallery or going through the music player is just cool. And lastly, we should all be for game preservation. And Capcom really seems to know this, and they do a great job here. And they will probably do more. There will probably be a Capcom Fighting Collection 3 at some point, because there's still a lot more Capcom Fighting arcade games to do. But right now, Capcom Fighting Collection 2 sounds like it should be a pipe dream. Moving on to the mixed aspects, you may have noticed when going through the games, I made a big deal about how I skipped over Capcom Fighting Evolution. And that's because this game sticks out like a motherfucker in this collection. Every other game in this collection is an absolute banger. Capcom Fighting Evolution, on the contrary, isn't. In fact, it might actually be one of the laziest releases ever. Inherently, the game sounds awesome. There exists a lot of, Capcom versus game, Marvel versus Capcom, Capcom versus SNK, But what about a Capcom versus Capcom game? A fighting game where Capcom characters cross over with each other? Well, that is what Capcom Fighting Evolution is. When I say it's lazy, the roster is divided by 4 characters per 5 Capcom fighting game franchises, or fighting games rather, along with some OCs. This might sound cool, but 3 of those games represented are Street Fighter. There's characters that represent Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 3, and Street Fighter Alpha, along with Darkstalkers and Red Earth, which I guess is cool to see Red Earth, but still kind of weird. So that's a strange imbalance, but also it's missing obvious characters like Ken from Street Fighter, and Morrigan, the main character from Darkstalkers, is just not in this game. What really makes this lazy is that each character plays exactly how they do in their own game. And I'm not saying it's they do that in like a staying true to the source material kind of way, but in like a very lazy kind of way. Like they didn't do the work to like have them at least feel coherent, you know what I mean? All this to be in the mixed, and not the bad. So why is that? Well, bad games still deserve preservation, and even though Capcom Fighting Evolution is a bad game, it is an interesting yet forgotten piece of the history of Capcom fighting games, and really probably just Capcom as a whole. So even though it's not a very good game, I still think it is worth preserving, but it still sticks out like a sore thumb in this collection. Moving on to the bad, there are a couple of things. One is kind of a continuation of my mixed issue about Fighting Evolution, and that's, if you're going to include that game, there are some auto missions that should be here. I briefly mentioned how the first Rival Schools and Star Gladiator are noticeably missing despite their sequels being here, and that's just odd to me. Sure, those sequels are better, but it would be like doing the Street Fighter collection and not including the first game. And the first Street Fighter is bad. But even if that wasn't included in the Street Fighter collection, that would be an odd omission. I've heard some rumors of maybe some licensing issues in the first Rival Schools and Star Gladiators, so maybe Capcom can sort that out before Capcom Fighting Collection 3 if that is indeed gonna happen. But it's just 2 odd omissions considering their sequels are here. Additionally, as good as Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper is, it's still not like the biggest version of Alpha 3. There is still one more, Street Fighter Alpha 3 Max. This isn't as strange as, yeah, Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper is really good, but yeah, that is worth noting, that it's not like the best version of Alpha 3. These complaints are in the bad, sure, but they don't ruin the game or the experience for me. I'm complaining about what's not there, and 2 of the things I'm mentioning are not even as good as their follow-ups that are present. So that's not a terrible problem to have. What is really frustrating though is the whole save slot thing. This was probably my biggest issue with the Marvel vs. Capcom collection, but in most collection games, you can save at any point in any game and they don't overwrite each other. Not this game though. For example, let's just say you're playing arcade mode in CVS 2. but you want to stop, you want to put the game down, you want to play a different game. So you save where you are in CVS 2, and you want to go play, say, like Power Stone. But let's just say you're in the middle of Power Stone, and you need to get up and do something, you want to put that down, you want to save your spot in Power Stone. You can't do that without overwriting your save in CVS 2. I don't understand why Capcom has now done this twice, especially since they didn't always do this. Like, just don't do that. Like, why can't we just have one save slot per game instead of having only one throughout the entire collection? That is frustrating to me.
This is gonna be a match to remember. Fight!
Overall, while I did spend quite a bit of time on the bad and the mixed, I really don't have that many serious issues with Capcom Fighting Collection 2. Preservation is important, and Capcom seems to really understand this as they dig up their old games that were long overdue for re-releases. And yes, like I said earlier, you probably came here to play the Capcom vs SNK games, but don't sleep on the other games, as they are well worth it too. And Capcom Fighting Evolution. Fighting games are truly back, and Capcom putting out collections like this is a major contributing factor. In the end, I'm going to give Capcom Fighting Collection 2 a 9 out of 10. So that was my review of the Capcom Fighting Collection 2. What do you guys think? Do you guys like the game, not like the game? Have you guys played the game, not played the game? If you guys haven't played the game, you guys want to play it, not want to play it, anything about the game, let me know down below. Anyways, be sure to like this video, come subscribe, or I will lock you up.